Cici.
Yes.
Welcome to the Theatre Café Webinar Series about how to write and produce theatre for young audiences. I've invited you here because you have been making and producing a very particular kind of theatre, namely hip-hop theatre. It's been one of your passions for the last few years. You have both produced and performed in a hip-hop theatre production, and you have also started a hip-hop theatre festival in Oslo and Trondheim, the festival that happens in two different cities in Norway, called the Speakerbox Festival.
Yay.
That's now been running for 2 years.
Yay.
And is growing, and it's been collaborating with the National Theatre and other institutions. So I just wanted to ask you, first of all, can you tell us what is hip-hop theatre?
Yes. There's a lot of different views on that. Some people are very strict with the rules, some are not. I'm not that strict with it. But basically, it's theater based on hip-hop aesthetics and also telling the stories from a lower class perspective, if you want. Yeah, so the hip-hop aesthetics, the elements of hip-hop, DJing, breakdancing, rapping, and graffiti, and the other
MCing.
ones. Yeah, the MCing, that's the rapping, and the other things around also, like spoken word, beatboxing. Those are also like not the four basic ones, but a part of the hip hop culture.
You have to include all of these then in a production?
No. It's different views on that also. Some says as long as one element is represented, that's okay, and some says that all four has to be there. That's the strict ones. I'm not that strict, and I say that it's also, for me, if I want to make my own definition, it's not that they just have to be there and be represented, but they have to be the foundation, because a lot of theater can use them as, just have someone spinning on their head or just rapping just to be fun, and that's not. It has to be the foundation that you build the script or the play from.
Can you tell us about the history, just very briefly, of hip-hop theatre?
Hip-hop theater has been for a while, and it's hard to say when it started, but Danny Hop in New York, he wrote a manifest to define it, and that is kind of when it got a lot of attention in the beginning of the in the middle of the 90s. What he said in the manifest about defining hip-hop theater also is that there was a need for the hip-hop generation to define their own form, because a lot of people were starting to use hip-hop as an expression in theater, but a lot of people that didn't know the hip-hop culture used it without knowing. So he tried to make this manifest to define it in the strict rules, kind of, but yeah.
And hip-hop theatre in Norway is a much more recent phenomenon.
Yes, it is. There's been some hip-hop theater. It wasn't defined as hip-hop theater, but Tarzan på Grønland, and also in Jungelboken. What's that? The Jungle Book. Oh, it's direct translation. Okay, that was also. They used a lot of elements from hip hop in that show, and it was just a need to bring it all together and say, this is a thing. This is something that's happening. Let's gather up and see what it is, and not leave that form in the hands of people that don't know the culture.
So when did you start getting interested in hip-hop theatre?
I didn't know that it existed. I grew up as a theater girl, and I also liked hip hop. I didn't kind of think of that it could be combined. Then I was working at Toneelmakerij Teater, big theater in Shanghai, as an actress, and I wanted to make my own show. And then I had two rapper friends, and one an upright bass and one a guitar, and we started making this show together. Then I googled hip hop and theater in the same Google search, and it came up, Hip Hop Theatre Festival in New York. Okay, cool, let's go. So I went to New York, and I saw a lot of plays, and I started to see a lot of spoken word events, slam poetry, and I'm like, this is what I've been missing. This is because I've been so bored at the theater in a way, seeing the same audience and doing, I don't know, doing stories that didn't, I couldn't care less about some of the stories. And then I saw this, and I'm like, this is what I want to do. I want all my friends to come to New York and see this. And then I realized all my friends are not going to come to New York and see it. So then I applied the Arts Council of Norway for funding to have a small festival and bring some of the shows that I'd seen over, because I felt like it had so much of the stuff that we're always talking about in theater. It's like, how can we get the young audience into the theater? How can we get the multicultural environment to be in the theater? How can we have a more diverse audience and also performers? And how can we interact with the audience? I'm like, it's all there. Hip hop has it all. With the it's always like, when I say speaker, you say box, speaker, box, speaker, box. And the young audience, and also with hip hop events, it's always diverse. Kind of, if you go to a theater event, you can come to an event and it's all white people in their 60s. But you don't go to a hip hop event and it's all white people in their 60s, or just, it's a lot of different people. And I'm like, mix it together and you get what you want, what you're having seminars about and talks, all of that. Just take some hip hop into it and for a while and see what happens.
And what has been your experience then in doing this? Collaborating, for example, with the, famously 60s white people theatre, the National Theatre in Oslo. Yeah. You very bravely have said yes to have your festival there. Yes. You might be recognising the need for something like this.
Yes. My experience, I love people in their 60s, nothing wrong with them. It's not that. I feel like in the collaboration with the National Theatre, I love that they said yes to have us there, and also that we can learn something from them and the other way around. But the experience is that I love seeing audiences, members sitting next to each other, having like experiences and having fun, laughing, crying next to someone that they never interact with in their everyday life.